Just recording a walkthrough on how to use the survey dashboard for the student survey if you ever find yourself using the dashboard facility in our files. So the dashboard was developed by a colleague named Joe Gay, and it's a really useful way of sharing data with the department in a way that is not identifiable, where you can combine groups really easily and where you can provide the information in a dashboard without giving them access to the raw data. I'm going to start out showing you what information you need from JISC and then how to input it into the spreadsheet. So starting, you've done your survey, you'll have run it, you'll have done all great comms and you'll have got people to fill it in. This is an example of the student survey. It's closed now, so let's go in and see what we need. So let's go to the analyze function in here and work out what we need. So we need to download the data. So we want the responses in the CSV. This just means that it's set out in the right way. And first of all, we need the uncoded CSV. So that includes a row for each of the respondents and a column for each of the questions. We'll see this in a second. So let's see what that looks like. Unfortunately, in the new JISC, it's not labeled in any useful way. Oh, it's opened on my third screen. That's helpful. So that's what it looks like. It's got a column for each of the questions and it's got a row for each of the responses. So each row is an individual person, and we'll go through and we'll process all of this information. The second thing you need is a key file. So we need to download the responses again, and it's the key file for coded CSV. I know I said we're not using the coded version, but the dashboard that we use uses this to kind of run it and do the grouping of particular responses. So key file, download. So this is basically the structure of your survey. Let's have a look at that. So you've got each question, the question text, and then each of the response options with a number next to them. All right, so that's all the stuff downloaded that we need. I'll see you in a moment and we'll put it into the dashboard. So this is the dashboard. There's a guide here, but the guide is for the department, so ignore that. You see here different tabs. So we've got a tab for the raw data, we've got a tab for the key, and various other bits and bobs you don't need to use. So these two you won't use, you will use this. Oh, sorry, that's a bit of a leftover. So let's start with the raw data. We're going to, so here's our raw data. We're just going to copy the whole lot. Make sure we've got all of the information, copy it, and we'll just paste it into our document. You'll see there's a column here that's marked 0 department. Now this is for the way that it's formatted. So you'll paste it into column D, and then this is NDPH. So I'm just going to manually add this in. So this is for making the demographic, the benchmarking document and other bits and bobs as well. So we just added in that manually. This is the NDPH survey. Double check that we've got the right number of people. Yeah, we know there are 76 responses, so there are 77 lines, which is the responses minus the thing. And then we've got the key. So first of all, that's not pathology anymore. So let's put NDPH in there. And then we'll get our key document that we just downloaded, so if we can bloody locate it anywhere. And we'll copy this whole lot, just make sure it's got everything. Yep, so 45 questions. And we'll paste it into this document. And now you'll see here, it pastes it in here. We don't really use these columns, but I don't delete them just in case it makes any of the, the spreadsheet go mad. And we've got this column here, which is a coding of each of the responses. So whether it is positive, neutral, or negative. Now, this just makes sure that the some of the formatting works in the document, and it should automatically populate. But if there are any NA values in here, let's have a quick look. We might need to add it into the POSNEG coding. So if one of those showed up, if say don't know, or prefer not to say, didn't have anything next to it, we would need to make sure that we are assigning the option prefer not to say to a positive or negative coding. So you'll see positive goes to the positive answer options. So what was mapped to, a good experience, negative to a bad experience, neutral to a neutral experience, and then other to all of those categorical lists. So if you ask someone what type of behavior they experienced, you can't really map that in any way. So we do them all to other. I think that's all: positive, neutral, negative, and other. Well, that's good. So we've got our raw data and our key in there. And now we need to do a bit of a jump. So we need to review each of the demographic questions to make sure that the level of responses means that you're able to interrogate it. And the level of anonymity we've selected is that there have to be at least 5 people in each demographic group for a department to be able to look at that information. So we do that in various ways. First of all, we need to, you'll see in here, we need to first map where the gender information is coming from. So we go into dashboard gender and we make sure we've selected the right question, which is, what is your gender? Okay, so that's pointing this whole spreadsheet at the right question to identify gender. And then we go into here and then we can select one of the demographic questions to check to see if they have enough information. So there's weird stuff going on here. So in here, in the question, we added a bunch of caveat information, and we now need to remove that because it's interrupting the spreadsheet's ability to do its job. So let's have a look. So how do you describe all this bump needs to go? And then in disability as well, there's just too much information in there and it makes the spreadsheet break. And then we'll go into the same questions in the key and just make sure that they match. So delete that and delete that. Lovely. So let's go back into identifying questions. And every time you change something, you need to reselect. There you go. So the spreadsheet basically looks at all the information based on very complicated workings that you do not touch. So in a spreadsheet, you never delete anything, you never cut anything, you only ever copy and move things around because you might be interfering with all of the special working in there. You'll see that there are groups in here that we're not able to interrogate because there are fewer than 5 people. So we can look at the experience of Asian students. So we'll put that in there. And we can interrogate the experience of white students. So we'll pop that in there. 4 there, 4 there, 3 there. So we're not able to look at this information, so we can group them, and we group them in this column. So it's black, mixed, and other. And then we put those in there. And this is prefer not to say. We can keep that separate if we wish. So we've got 4 groups there that we've combined there. And if you see what this does, it basically creates a new column for ethnicity with these grouped things in, which is really useful. It means that you don't have to touch the raw data to make this shareable. Although if you in a pinch, you could of course overwrite this information, but you have to be really confident you're doing the right thing here because you are changing people's information that they put in. So we prefer to do it through identifying questions. Let's have a look at the other questions and see if there's anything that we can see. So we've got enough disabled staff to look at that. That's great. Tuition fee status, we've got loads of information there. That's brilliant. First to attend university, prefer not to say isn't an option. It's 6 as well, so that's great. Caring responsibility. Oh, interesting. There's no information there. This happens sometimes with the last question on the survey. The way you can deal with it is making a new one, just a blank one. Question 46, blank, and then 1 blank. Let's see if that made a difference. Interesting. Probably need to add it into the 46 blank, and then we'll leave it all blank. Did that do it? Yes, here we go. Because it was the last question, I think sometimes the spreadsheet can't work out what the last question is. So I just added an additional question there, and that just solved that issue. All right, so we've also got enough information in caring responsibilities to be able to interrogate that, so we don't need to group anything else. Oh wait, were there any additional demographic questions that this department asked? No, they didn't ask about course, they didn't ask about location, so we can safely use all this information. All right, what's the next thing that we do? Now we work the dashboards. So the way the dashboards work is that they look at a series of information, and you can look at it along two avenues, so a category and a characteristic. For departments, I like to limit them to one piece of information, so they can look at the experiences by gender, they can look at the experiences by ethnicity, but they can't combine those. It just makes it easier, and that's how I set up the privacy, the paperwork in there. So the grouping factor category is always department because everyone's from the same department, and that fills through here. And then we look at the difference in experience by the different answers in this table. So this is the table as was set up for me. Let's just hide that again and reduce that. And you click between each of the questions in here and it pulls through the data from the spreadsheet using some absolutely petrifying formatting and calculations there. Absolutely unbelievable piece of work from Joe. And let's just unfreeze the panes because it's making it difficult to see what's going on. Right. So I've added this additional functionality at the bottom here, which basically says, look at those, copy them over, but use the that coding that we put together, the POSNEG coding, to group, to identify whether that answer option was positive, neutral, negative, or other. So NA is no answer. So this spreadsheet also looks at people who didn't answer the question. And then it says, look at this table above, group all of the positive data and the neutral and the negative data, and then work out the proportions, just so a department doesn't have to go in and work out what on earth all these different numbers mean. They can go straight down to here and say 57% of women were positive about this and 70% of men. So maybe I'll look into this a bit because clearly women are having a different experience in terms of integration. That's as easy as that. You'll sometimes have to change these things around, and I'll just take you through how to do this because this will definitely be an option here. So let's see. We'll always need to reselect what question we want them to look at. Okay, so here's that data. It groups those, so that is where we've grouped those groups that had fewer than 5 respondents in it, so black, mixed, and other. So it's looking at that first column rather than the ethnicity column. It's pulling through their information about each individual question. So I feel able to be myself in the department. And you'll see down here again, it's got all of this data, kind of, it's grouping the data so a department can use it. So you can look at the experience of age. I mean, you can't really use this column because it's just conflating too many things. Where a department doesn't have enough respondents to look at this in any more detail, I might also group the experience of all non-white students together as, you know, BAME versus white experience in the department. But that will be up to a department to kind of tell me whether they want to look at that. Obviously, it's a really blunt measure, but here we can compare the experience of white students to all students to Asian students, for example. Right, disability. Again, we reselect disability. So we're looking at the difference in experience from disabled staff to non-disabled, disabled students to non-disabled students. That's really simple. Fee status, we looked at that, so we know we're able to use this. So we need to point it to the right question. Oh, no, accidentally went to ethnicity. So there's tuition fee status, and you can see all of the formatting has gone weird here, and that is because in this question, the answer options were formatted strangely. So either I can deal with this strange formatting down here, or I can add something in there. Let's just deal with the strange formatting because that'll be easiest. So Like I say, you never cut, you always copy and paste, you never delete because that will screw up all the bits and bobs in the spreadsheet. So just copy that column. I just want to make sure this is all right. And so we're just copying the grouping columns here. Oh, crikey, something odd has happened here. I wonder what happened here. I must have deleted something. That Apologies all, I completely missed out recording this bit because I hit the time limit. So let's go back to it. So there's some funny formatting here, and I know the reason for this. It's something that you just get to know once you've used the dashboard for a little while. Basically, there aren't enough answer options in here, and this gap here is unformatted, if you can see. So the underlying spreadsheet expects there to be at least 3 answer options for it to function. And because I forgot to add in prefer not to say when I set up the survey, because I just did, it's doing some funny formatting. So what we do is we just add it in after the fact so that it fits into the structure. We're not changing anyone's options. We're just adding a third option that wasn't available at the time. People could have skipped it if they didn't want to tell us the thing, so that's absolutely fine. And we do that in the key. So basically what we need to do, we need to add a third option there, like this one: yes, no, prefer not to say, yes, no, prefer not to say. That's why all those demographics are working. This one isn't, because there's only UK and overseas. So we do this by making space and then adding another option in, and we don't make space by, inserting a row or cutting and pasting, because that might make everything go terrible, and I don't know how to rebuild the spreadsheet, so you've got to be careful. And we'll just copy this 3, prefer not to say. So now the question 43 has 3 options in it, and that should have solved the problem. Where are we going? Fee status, that's where we were. So we've got UK, overseas, prefer not to say. And you see that solved all of the issues there, which is wonderful. So that's all sorted. And this one, unfortunately, I did this while I wasn't being recorded, but it's exactly the same as before. You would go into first gen, you would say, am I the first person in my family to go to university? That's fine. Oh, and look, we don't have all of the demographic dashboards in here, so I must have not have set this before saving the template. So I'll show you exactly how to do this now. So if we can see from the drop down, we've missed out on the caring responsibilities dashboard. So we can add this now, and it couldn't be simpler to do. Basically, when the dashboard was first set up, there was only one reporting area, and that was this gender one. And then you could add in other characteristics to look at the intersection of gender and another thing, for example. But I find it easier when we're looking at multiple demographics to set up multiple dashboards, because then a department doesn't have to fiddle around with it. They can just click through the questions and not change any of the characteristics and have all of this formatting issues that we've been having. So if we want to make another dashboard for another demographic, it's so simple. We right click representative dashboard. It could be any of them. I'm going to choose one that has a similar breakdown. So caring responsibility says yes, no, and prefer not to say. 3 answer options. I'm going to take a 3 answer option dashboard. So move or copy, create a copy. I'll pop it right at the end because it was our last question. And there we go, we've got another dashboard there. Let's change what it's called. Caring. And then we just need to change the demographic. There we go. So do you have day-to-day caring responsibilities? Yes, no. Exactly the same everywhere else. And then, oh look, that looks like it's going to be a really interesting demographic to interrogate. Already there's some interesting information coming through there. So we know we can use caring responsibility because 12 individuals who have caring responsibilities filled it in. So that is brilliant. And that is how to deal with all the dashboards. And there you have all of them. And I've already deleted that one for course because the department didn't ask for course. The last thing we're going to do with this raw data set is we're going to process all of the free text. So when I set student surveys, I set up only 2 free text questions. So the question is, what is the best thing about studying here, and what one thing would you change about studying here? And then I've asked after each of the questions whether they can self-code what the question was about. I do each question in turn, and I have them on a separate tab. So first of all, I unselect the blanks, and then I copy these 2 columns. So that is the free text comment, and then the coding. And then I've got 2 tabs for free text at the end. So this is the best thing, and I paste them in. So let's just wrap the text so we can easily review this, and then we'll do a similar thing in the raw data for the what one thing would you improve. This is quite a sensitive area, obviously, because this is the place where students can talk about their experience more broadly rather than just selecting from a pre-identified list. So there's going to be information in here that you will need to review to make sure that it's appropriate to be shared. We set up in the privacy paperwork that each of the free text questions will be reviewed by a human and any identifying information removed before it's shared with the department to ensure that student anonymity is protected as best as possible. And this is what we're going to do now. So literally, it's just a case of going through each individual question and taking out anything that is identifiable. So if they refer to a specific situation, if they refer to being in a specific lab, sometimes if they refer to being in a specific building, that's kind of variable. Sometimes they will refer to a specific person as being in their orbit. You might want to remove that. It's really a case-by-case basis, and you have to really concentrate on this to make sure that as much as possible, an individual can't be identified by their response. We'll also do something at the end to mix up the order, because obviously if you compare where the comment is in this list to the next one, you might be able to identify a student's 2 comments. So we'll make sure that that isn't identifiable as well. So in here, I don't think this is identifiable. There's a bunch of different stuff. I mean, you can't see this because I've fuzzed it up to protect anonymity, because these are actual student responses. But I'll go through each one and identify what is identifiable and what isn't. I'll add a filter, and then to do that kind of masking activity at the end, I just sort this A to Z by the theme, and it just messes up the order, and it makes it impossible for an individual to identify a student's 2 comments, just another layer of support. And then I'll do the same thing here. So I'll go through each of these questions, and I'll make sure that I've removed any identifiable information. And I'll put the filter. Oh no, that's gone weird. So I'll put the filter on, and then I will sort that A to Z. And that again means that an individual you can't kind of track their one response to another one. And then the very last thing that I do, just to make sure it's really not accessible anymore if I've made any changes, it's not kind of connected to their overall responses, I'll literally go in and I will delete, well, I will clear contents of all of these questions, so they no longer exist in the raw data set. It's just another layer of protecting student responses. So, you know, if a department were to break into the back of this this dashboard, they still couldn't see anything that I didn't want them to. So that's how we deal with free text. One thing I started doing this year is I always find free text very difficult to use. It takes departments ages to kind of get to grips with it. You have to go through a lot of coding and kind of Excel work, or you can use something like NVivo, but it takes a lot of work to kind of interrogate all that information. So I've done a couple of things. Firstly, being that I added in that additional question. So for the for individuals to self-code the theme of their comment. And secondly, I've used the power of ChatGPT to build a custom GPT that processes the free text comments, and it creates a report for us. So I'll be able to share this. let's have a look. It's a GPT summarizes free text from the MSD Student Experience Survey and creates a report for each department. So firstly, we pop in all the information about the positive or neutral comments. So the best thing about studying here. And then here's the worst, sorry, not the worst. What one thing would you change? So you'll see the GPT reads all that and it says, thank you for all this. Now put in the less positive question. And using large language model technology, its own internal logic, and some instructions I have given it, it will create me a structured report. So that includes an executive summary, an overview of the strengths, an overview of areas for improvement, and some priority themes for addressing based on the number and frequency of comments in each variable theme. It's just a really simple overview of what the free text tells you. So this is obviously compiled by a machine, not compiled by human eyes, but this sort of thing is where GPTs really excel. They really excel at processing information, processing data, processing language. So they're really great to use for turning a bunch of raw information into something more structured. And this is what this does. So what do we do? Here's one I preferred earlier. You copy it off, you put it into a document. The only thing you need to do is double check the numbers because it is very bad at counting. 50. Sometimes it reads the thematic coding as a comment in and of itself. I don't know why. Anyway, we've put a title, we've added a note that the report was generated using a GPT and large language model. I've also included it in my communication with the department where that comes from with an indication, instructions that this is a starting point. This is to help you get to grips with your free text, but then you can go into it in more detail. But it includes an overview of the theme of the comments and then a couple of examples. And then at the very end, kind of a prioritized list of areas to explore based on the content of those comments. It's just something that helps the department kind of get over the initial hurdle of looking at free text. It's where all the really interesting kind of grist is, but it can be difficult to interact with. So we've done that. All right, the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you how, so I developed this very recently, and this is some top level information that allows a department to see all of their responses in one go. And it's a little bit awkward, but it's really, really useful because it means that they can just see everything, well, a limited everything, and be able to pull out the information. Well, it'll guide them in like what things kind of stand out and what groups stand out because you're seeing all of the demographics side by side. It's a little bit awkward, but we do what we can do. So first of all, you need to copy in the question list, and the question list needs to kind of go alongside these columns. So this is reference of the column. So we go into raw data, go from column A to whatever column is the last one, and then we'll just paste special. We'll do values and we'll transpose as well, so it goes down. Okay, so it brings through the identifying question 1, that's column A, and then everything in here, and you'll see what it does is it takes out the numbers there so that I can track just the question text without the numbers, because the numbers will change by whatever student experience survey it is, because they will have added additional ones in. So you can't just point it to the overall question text. You need to point it to the question text minus the question identifier. So it hasn't actually copied that through. And you'll see it kind of pulls in this column, which is just some information about where to find the data. So you'll see female, male. So it's saying the gender information's in column BD. Let's double check. Oh no, it's wrong. All right, so I'll fix this before anyone else comes to use it, but that'll be a problem with this. X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D. I think I remember this one. B, A, B, 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 C, B, D, B, E, B, F, B, G. Oh, so there's an issue there. So there's an additional little letter, A, B, C. Oh, here we go. So it's just missing one of these letters. So there we go. Everything's in the right place now. This won't be a problem if someone else comes to use this. So it's saying find this information here, and then all of this calculation just works. It just looks at that column and it says, look in these columns. So there's a problem there, and there's a problem there. And I imagine this is because of the different wording. I feel able to be myself in the department. I feel able to be myself in the department. Don't know why that's gone weird, but we can just copy it over and make sure it's correct. Okay, so it's not pulling anything through there. I feel able. Okay, that's why. I feel comfortable discussing my training needs with my supervisor. Let's try and find that question. Okay. Let's find the question. All right, so it's there, question 10. Oh, okay, I see. It's just not quite pulled out the right number of things. That will also be fixed. That was because I moved things down. So you see that's fixed now. I am going to get rid of this column because I don't want this individual being identifiable. Actually, that's a good point. I might have to group that in the overall question, because if we look in gender, we can very specifically identify the experience of our non-binary or prefer to self-describe individual. So I would have to do that in the raw data because I'm not able to do it in the... No, I could do it. Hold on a second. It's in identifying questions. Let's double dip. What is your gender? And then I would probably group that with prefer not to say, so that their information remains in the overall data, but we can't identify their specific answers. Interesting. All right, see, it's caught up with itself. And then when we look at the top level, we would need to point this at a different space because it's still looking at BE. So all I would do, I know it's identifying question B, question 2. I'll copy that and I will paste that over the top of the question. Oh. Oh, I know why that is. Because I haven't updated this. Oh yeah, and it's not copied over. There we go. Oh, and that's not copied over either. God, we're being really shoddy today, aren't we? Well, I say we, me. All right, so I've just masked that, and let's just double check in gender that it's working. Great. So that individual is no longer identifiable, but their experience remains in the prefer not to say column. We also need to do something here because, as you remember, we changed the identifying question here. So we need to reflect those answer options. So we need to point this rather than to the actual question about ethnicity. We need to point it to identifying question 1. So let's just copy that in. And then we've got different groups now. Oh yeah, and this is now still not looking at the right stuff. So let's just, so that's that sorted. And as you see, there's no more data for those 3 groups that we grouped. So to make sure we've got the right groups, we just copy from here. So that's all of that. There we go. And that's got everyone's experience in there. And then there we have it. There is a traffic light look at all of the demographics answer to the key benchmarking questions. So you can have a look just from the top level at who's having a less positive experience. So there's an interesting one. Our students with caring responsibilities are having a really different experience to our students without, and our disabled students also. We often see this as well, where people have preferred not to say on a demographic question. They may be trying to mask their identities by not providing any demographics, which is absolutely fine. That's why it's there. But they also tend to be our most marginalized students, and they're probably having a less positive time. So these individuals, so there's clearly some trust things going on in this department as well. It's a relatively high number of people. Remember our non-binary students in there as well. That's basically how to use the dashboard. Once this is all done, so that people can't kind of get into it, I tend to highlight the whole thing, copy it. Oh wait, let me just check to make sure everything's in there. Yeah. And then I'll just paste over with just the values, and then I'll delete all of this so that people can't kind of jailbreak the spreadsheet. So all they're left is this top level information and then the broken down information underneath. And there you have it. I'll come back in a moment and we'll go over how to protect this and share it with the department. So the last thing we need to talk about is how do we protect this workbook and how do we share it? So there's no point going through this process if we're not able to share it safely. The whole point of this workbook is that it hides, it protects the raw data without, so you can share this information, these dashboards, with the department without sharing the raw information. It's a really simple process. Basically, you need to hide all of these tabs. So highlight them all, hide them. Here you've got all that great stuff. So you've got the guide, you've got the departmental digest, you've got all the dashboards, and then you've got the free text. That's all you want them to see. So you've hidden it all, and now you need to protect the structure so they can't unhide it. So protect workbook, and then set a password so that the department can't unhide them. And that's it. I'd like to go through and I'd like to double check that everything's fine. I'll do a last check on the, firstly, check to make sure that's taken. Sometimes if you don't match passwords, it might not work. It's always good practice to double check that it's worked. I do it by just checking in here. Unhide sheet has been grayed out, which means that the structure of the workbook has been protected. Go through, just have a last check, make sure it's easy to interact with. I like to scroll down so that you can see the percentage data there, so a department doesn't have to go looking for it. In each section, make sure your freeze panes are working. Make sure it's ready to share. And there you go. I like to save these. I will email the department with kind of a guide on how to use the dashboard with instructions in the email on how to navigate through and what each tab does. I will, in that email, attach the free text report only, not this dashboard. And then in the email, I will ask them who should have access, and make a point that only those who have legitimate need to access this information should have access, just to make them think about who is actually going to be doing the reviewing, so that they can limit the number of people who have access to this information. And then I will share in OneDrive access to the dashboard itself rather than emailing. It's just another layer of security. And I'll, in that email, put really clear guidance on how to save it, and that it is not to be shared, it's not to be emailed, it's just for their reference. And that is helpful for a department to get really clear instructions on exactly how something can be used. And then I'll save it in my drive, and have that as reference for when I, for example, do an Athena's One application. I can go into their student data, and include that, and refer to that as I'm going through. That's it. It's a long video, I know, but it's a really, really, really valuable tool and well worth you taking time to get your head around it. Thank you so much. Do email me if you have any questions.